thanks for coming out in this starting to be cold weather. Um, my name is Lori Lang, and I am the president of the Madison Jazz Society. And we have several people in the room that are on our board and that have come multiple times, so that might be you. Tonight we have a really special feature for the workshop, and hoping that we all learn a little something. Jordan Cohen, who is a drummer, and he plays with Mama Dig Down and a bunch of other groups, and he is going to lead us in some New Orleans percussion and what that sounds like and what it comes from. Maybe he's going to share his wisdom with us and some beats. And then joining him is Scott Elsner on the tuba. And so they're going to lay down the basics of the rhythm section. And so some of you that play horns, you might want to get those out because we might need some melody coming up pretty quick. So it might not be as deep into the workshop as usual. And then around 7, we'll make a transition to have a jazz jam. And maybe we can pick up some of this stuff and bring it forward, or we'll have a sign up and people can play different tunes and enjoy doing whatever. But you're sitting at COPA. Some of you have explained that too, and you might know what it is, but this is the Hope 7 Arts Campus on Madison's south side, here just at the beginning of Fitchburg. This building, we're hoping to have a 400-seat theater here, rehearsal rooms, offices, have many arts organizations occupy and use use the building in the times that they need it, and not all the time, but sharing it with multiple arts organizations. It's a pretty cool project. If you want to learn more about it, it's copamadison.org, and you can learn more about that vision or even support it financially or by putting your efforts forth in that, and you're welcome to do that. Madison Jazz Society, this is one of our community programming. These cost about $1,000 every time we put them on. So we can use support as well financially. If there's ways you'd like to help out with Madison Jazz Society, we are always looking for volunteers to help us in various ways, and you're welcome to let us know about that. And if you're interested, maybe just talk to me or Adam. This is Adam right here. He's another person you can talk to and learn more. But I'll turn this over now to Jordan. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Yeah, my name's Jordan Cohen. I've been playing in Mama Dig Down's brass band for over 20 years now. I remember I was in college here, and I was playing at the Orpheum in a jazz trio, and a drummer who was in the band at the time walked in, and I was just a young drummer, and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about playing in a brass band, a New Orleans brass band?" And I said, yeah. I had gotten like one album by the Rebirth Brass Band when I was in high school, and then heard them on a Maceo Parker album that they were on, and I was always really fascinated by it. And so when he left for a year and I came in, and the older guys in the band started going down to New Orleans with them. And I've been going ever since. Just fell in love with the music and the culture. Yeah, I've been really dedicated myself to just trying to learn it authentically. Well, let's see. First, what do we have instrumentation-wise? I'm just curious. What, guitar, sax, trumpet? Great. Bass. Oh, okay, cool. Anything else? Yeah, excellent. Tap dancing. That's for real. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's that's drums. Yeah, yeah. Okay, excellent. And what do people think of when? Well, okay. Who here has been to New Orleans? Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. So, I think if you're in New Orleans, it becomes evident pretty quickly, like how different it is from any American city. It's a very special place culturally, um, and the music is out there. So yeah, you can really start to soak it in. But so what do people think of when they think of New Orleans music? Like one thing. Group improvisation, sure. What? Parades, yeah. That's the big one for me. Yep. Anything else? Yeah. No sheet music. I agree. Yeah, it's very much an oral tradition. Yeah, we've almost never had a chart since I've been in the band. Almost never seen a chart in New Orleans. It's not totally true. Like when the great trumpet player Leroy Jones has come up and played with us a few times. He definitely brings his very specific charts. um, what else? Community. Yep. Yeah. So a lot of the history of it that I've come to understand. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the context first, and then we'll get into some musical stuff. Um, uh, First of all, like the story that I've always heard is that when people, black people in New Orleans, African diaspora, it was one of the few places in the country where music was allowed, like playing in Congo Square um, on on Sundays, and so a lot of that, like African, West African, Caribbean uh, musical traditions were preserved in a very direct way, um, and combined with everything else. And I mean, in case people don't know, I mean, New Orleans is where jazz was born. Um, it's also where the drum kit was invented. Um, one of the key ingredients is that black musicians, would be hired to play in parade bands, which a lot of that was European music, like marches. Picture like I don't know John Philip Sousa marches, and there'd be outside marching band set up, someone playing bass drum, um, often maybe at the time, I don't know, maybe someone else playing cymbals, maybe I'm not sure at what point, like uh, once you get to New Orleans brass bands, the bass drummer also plays the cymbal with one hand as well as the bass drum. Someone else playing snare drum, sousaphone, um, and a bunch of horns. And it's really made, well, we'll get to that, but it's outdoor music, and that's really um, the the brass band tradition that I come from. Um, but then, so that instrumentation, that European instrumentation, and that marching music um, started to just naturally be combined with all of that folkloric, diasporic drumming and rhythm sense. So um, I'll just I brought my bass drum. I used to play bass drum in the band for many years. Now I play more snare drum, but I thought it'd be fun. So I'm gonna play just a little bit of maybe what a traditional march rhythm would have been. Nothing unusual to people in Wisconsin. But then, when the New Orleans beat really started developing, the bass drum is really the heart of the whole thing. Anyone who plays in New Orleans or in a brass band will tell you the bass drum is the most important instrument. Sorry, Scott. um, so, one thing that people talk about is the Big Four. It's not exactly how I think of it, but who's heard that term, the Big Four, when it comes to New Orleans music? Okay, so it's basically referring to the last upbeat in the bar, and it's a big accent in a lot of New Orleans phrasing, and it's how that music moves forward. It's in all of it. So here's an example, as well as taking that march beat, and once it starts getting a little swing and a little syncopation. So, and I think people call it that because if you're counting, it's always that thing in jazz. Are you counting in cut time or halftime? If you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what people say. I actually think of it on the and. If you count off a tune 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and. But it doesn't really matter. That's just like Western notation ideas, anyway. Um, but so you'll hear in some of the other stuff, all the stuff we play, that beat is really important. And if you think of a lot of more modern jazz or bebop, it'll often be it'll be the beat after that that's syncopated and is a really common accent that brings people together. Like you hear this. And another thing that is super important for New Orleans music is clave. It's not really talked about a lot in those terms, but that's how I think of it. I'm sure people have heard that term like more in regards to Latin music. Like, do you know what a clave is? Who what who can like give me a meaning for clave? Yeah, exactly. A rhythmic ostinato. It's just an organizing principle for the music. And it doesn't mean that you have to state it all the time, but it's often always it's felt, and people are playing off of it, especially in the drums and in the rhythm section. So in New Orleans, like what I think of as the New Orleans clave starts on the upbeat and it's just five dotted eighth notes. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, ah, 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 1, ah. And you'll notice that ends on that big four, that ends on that big upbeat, so that uh, 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 so on the snare drum, a lot of what I'm doing, what drummers do, is playing around that. Same for some of the rhythm section instruments, guitar, piano, but it doesn't. It's not great if everyone is just playing the same thing and playing that straight out. So I think of a lot of balancing. Like if everyone is playing that rhythm, I'll want to play something straighter to balance it out and line things up. Same thing, I think, in the rhythm section comping. Um, so another thing that started to happen. So you had the brass bands playing in the street. Um, well, so yeah, before I get to that, actually, I did want to talk about like so in New Orleans culturally, um, the function of the music has really important social functions to this day. And that's another thing. Like, it's really like it's not just some old shit we're talking about. It's truly like a living musical culture. Um, Amazing bands to this day. These cultural institutions still exist. So there's something called a social aid and pleasure club, which is a community organization, has a lot of roles. One role was when the insurance companies wouldn't give black people insurance. It was a community aid organization where people would all pool their money, pay their dues every year, and when a member needed something, it would come out of that money. And also, and this is definitely, this is happening. These are the second line parades in New Orleans that happen during parade season. Each club, each social aid and pleasure club sponsors like one big parade, and it's a 4 hour parade. It's like the most intense musical gig I think that exists because these brass bands are playing essentially 4 sets in a row outside, loud, intense. Goes through the neighborhood. You know, they have to get police permits, and it's yeah. I mean, it's one of the most intense like musical and kind of ecstatic experiences that you can have. If you're in New Orleans, I definitely recommend. You have to do some searching to figure out like where the parade route starts. But yeah, highly recommend going a real second line if you ever get the chance. Um, so there's the brass bands, bass drum, snare drum, and that's really my medium. But then even since the beginning, there's been an indoors version of this music, um, and that's really where the drum kit started. Uh, its invention, and that's the birth of American music right there. Basically, because you only have to pay one guy. You take the drummers who are playing outside in the streets and start building a weird contraption. In case anyone doesn't know, that's why it's called a trap kit because it's short for contraption. Someone invented the pedal for the bass drum, and it was the hi-hat was just like a few inches tall just to do this, like this function. And drummers started playing the music on the kit. So I'll play a couple different things that are like an adaptation of that traditional sort of we call it yeah, that's one thing too. We don't use the term Dixieland. It's traditional jazz, trad jazz, or New Orleans jazz. So here's what I think of as a basic trad beat, and then do some stuff moving on from that. So that's a basic version of like the traditional street beat on drum set. Um, and there are a lot of different versions of that. It depends on like what kind of tune you're playing, what the chord changes are like, what everyone else is doing. Um, I want to go through a few of those. Let's do one. Let's try something where I want you to clap the New Orleans clave, and I'll play like a slightly more syncopated version of that beat, that style of second line drumming on the kit, and you can see how it is based on that and kind of plays around it too. So if everyone goes like. Good job. So let's play something. Um, let's just play a little gospel tune. So the other instruments in the rhythm section for this stuff, if you're used to hearing jazz walking bass where it's four beats to the bar, in New Orleans music, it's always halftime essentially, um, which leaves a lot of space for like the drums and the syncopation. Um, and it's also a little different than like halftime bass you would hear in country music or something, because there's room too for the two-bar bass to add some more syncopations. So yeah, we're just gonna play like "I'll Fly Away," and I'm gonna start it with what's called the roll-off, which is the traditional start to any trad tune that everyone in New Orleans knows that that's how you start a tune. Yeah, yeah. And you can hear too that upbeat ride cymbal really moves a lot in this music, and all it is fulfilling the function of the cymbal on the bass drum, which kind of lines everything up in brass band music. Um, Another aspect of New Orleans rhythm and drumming um, is Mardi Gras Indian music. Um, so has anyone seen like I'm sure you've seen photos of people in like the amazing like elaborate feathered outfits in New Orleans, the Indians. Um, yeah, it's really incredible. The origins are a bit mysterious, but the lore that I've always been told involves escaped black slaves who made community with Native Americans, and there is an interchange of traditions. Regardless of whether that's actually true or not, it's a totally unique culture in New Orleans, and they legitimately spend all year sewing a suit for Mardi Gras, and then just to go show out and have like essentially not real battles, but musical and boastful battles and see who's the prettiest one. Um, and there's also a whole sort of sub style of music with the Indians, which I really love. And basically, at its core, like when they go to what they call Indian practice, it's just bass drums, cowbells, and tambourines. So the bass drum, I can demonstrate. It's they play it more on its side, less like the brass band thing. So there'll often be no cymbal, and it's like this sort of rhythm. And then the tambourine is a big part of it. And the tambourine, I mean, it comes out of the gospel tradition. There's a lot of people who play amazing gospel tambourine in church. And there's there's also the Indian rhythms, which is pretty similar. So I'm happy to show anyone more about this, but you can play any rhythm on the tambourine. It's not really shaken. It's based on playing the head, so it's like this. Yeah, yeah, and the screws are always falling out, so I have to step on it. Um, yeah, yeah, and so you'll see like the great drummers in New Orleans too, like Shannon Powell and Herlin Riley. Um, they both grew up playing some amazing tambourine, and they'll incorporate that when they're playing the kit, which is yeah, it's really something if you get a chance to see them. Uh, really, when he was in town. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean he's the best. Yeah. Um, when my very first trip to New Orleans, uh, the way I see it at least, like in the '70s, the Dirty Dozen brass band, they took the New Orleans repertoire and all the traditional tunes, but then they started adding like bebop tunes and like '70s funk tunes, um, and then from there, the Rebirth brass band, my favorite band who I got the opportunity to play with earlier this year in Chicago for a couple nights, which was amazing. They started adding more of those like Mardi Gras Indian and West African and Caribbean influences in the beat, and they started also bringing in more R&B and hip hop sensibilities in some of the music, and that's kind of the foundation of like the modern brass bands that you'll hear today in the street. TBC, To Be Continued brass band, Stooges brass band, Hot 8 brass band, Big Six. So let's do something now. I'll show a couple different versions of it. There's the more like rebirth plays, and this is sort of what you can call like the one bar clave, but this is another like extremely common rhythm that seems simple at first, seems like one of the simplest rhythms there is, but it's a lifelong process of playing it well and making it feel good. So yeah, this is what you might hear a band like Rebirth playing in the street, and it's more what you might call like a second line funk or street rhythm. So let's do, I don't know, you want to do like. And then you'll hear that a lot on the kit too. If you listen to like the meters and bands playing interpretations of that brass band music, um, like what's the name of that famous meters song? Or like let's do play like Do What You Wanna. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So for me, it's all connected. It's like the Indian stuff. It's the jazz beat. It's the trad stuff. It's the modern funk stuff. Yeah, it's all part of the same thing. Um, another there's a common fill that people play, which is really just like a sort of a trad bass drum part. And you've probably heard me play it. It's like I'll be playing a beat, and then it'll be like this. And I got that from Shannon Powell, and it's really just like something a New Orleans bass drummer would play. But it's also, does anyone know that tune, Poinciana by Ahmad Jamal? Yeah, it was like a big tune, and people always, it drives me crazy. People make a big deal about like what a crazy beat, like what a unique drum beat it is on that tune. But the drummer, Vernel Fournier, is from New Orleans, and like anybody, he grew up playing those gigs. He knows that music, and so basically, like he has a brush in his left hand, and he's playing this. This is the beat. Which is, if someone says like, "Oh, I need a beat," it's one of the first things like a New Orleans bass drummer would do, and it's just that. You have the left hand on the cymbal, and yeah, and that's all it is. And most people don't know that. I feel. Now you know. Um, let's see. How much time do we have here? Okay, we have a little time. Um, so we don't have a horn player to play some heads, but I was thinking we could do it now, or we could do it with a. Yeah. Does anyone know like we could do a gospel tune like "This Little Light of Mine" or "I'll Fly Away," or we could do. Uh, I didn't think actually it didn't occur to me until you mentioned it, but we could do the Saints. We could do something on that. Could do Little Liza Jane. If someone knows, there's a there's a few blues. There's the Whoopin' Blues. I was thinking we could mess around a little bit with calling backgrounds and tailgating on a melody, but someone would have to be playing a melody for that. Or any other New Orleans tunes. What key do you? Yeah, we usually play it in F. Oh yeah, sure, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we could definitely do that. Okay. Yeah. Nice. How you doing? I've got a couple tambourines here too. If anyone wants to give it a shot. Oh sure. Oh yeah. 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 Well, so I'll start it. Yeah, a couple things to think about. One thing I'd really like to do. Um, well, two big concepts for New Orleans playing that are a little different. When someone is playing the melody, often everyone else will be free to play fills. Like trombone players usually call that tailgating, where they're listening for the holes in the melody and they're filling it up, and that's a big part of it for me. Like it's less common to have like a group improvisation where literally like everyone's soloing at once. Maybe on like a big final head out, it can sometimes sound like that. But there's a lot of just like everyone filling around and adding things. So that I think would be great to do if anyone wants to to do that during the head. And then the other big thing, the format that we use when we're soloing, it's not generally someone solos until they don't feel like soloing anymore. Um, in brass band music, it's a very set format. It's usually you play 24 bars of solo, and then while that person is soloing, the other horn players or someone comes up with the background to play over the changes, and it can be anything. Sometimes they're quotes from other songs. Sometimes it's just like one note, following the changes, like a rhythm, just a rhythmic pattern that you want, and then that's how the soloist essentially knows that their solo is coming to an end when the other players come in with a background. And in a trad like this, it'll often be like play one chorus, and then background for the next chorus. So that I'd really like to do. If you know, whoever isn't blowing a solo, pick a background and kind of like you just kind of tell the rest of the band. You just can just sing it to them, or however you can best communicate it to them while the person is playing their solo chorus, and then or and it doesn't have to be like perfect. Just kind of bring in a background behind them. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So, sure. So, I think of it as so you hold it in one hand. Maybe people do the other, but I'm kind of weird. I'm left-handed, and I do most things right-handed, which is why I'm not that good at a lot of it. But so the other hand that you're not here. Does this work? My hand that you're striking with really isn't doing it much. Like I can kind of it's a lot of this motion, this rotation. I can kind of do it with one finger, and then you can with that you can also when I actually do it, I use kind of the palm. And there's a little bit of adjustment to catch the head, but it's mostly sort of natural. And then yeah, you can start working on accents, slaps. So I would practice sometimes if I just have I don't know, a book or just my hands just doing this, or you can practice just essentially clapping. Yeah, yeah, it's a good way to do it. Yeah, Tamborine's a beautiful instrument. Yeah, super fun. So yeah, that's definitely something anyone can work on. Your string to your band, gospel tambourine playing. Yeah. How we doing?
We're at 7 o'clock.
All right.
How
Cool.
about questions? Would people like to ask
Oh
you
yeah,
questions?
yeah, yes. Um, I would say it's all that. I would say it's all shamanic. Maybe not in a really I guess it depends what you think of an explicit ritualized setting, but I think it's all that. I think Mardi Gras Indian practice is that. I think it's a ritual. I think the second line parades are a ritual. Um, yeah, I think it's very deeply rooted and healing practice in the culture. Yeah, for sure. Any other questions? Yeah. Did you have a question? Oh no. Oh, okay. Anyone else? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think to me that's the music, and that's what sort of jazz comes out of. Yeah, I think the music or the instruments were available because of the European influence, the pervading European influence, and I think, as I understand it, the black musicians would be hired to play in society bands and marching bands and playing European music, but then they also made it their thing with the traditions that they came from, and so that was like a new feel, a new music. And that was essentially what jazz comes from, and hence most American music. Mixing with some of those other you do hear a lot of those folk tunes, and there's crossover with a lot of those old gospel tunes that were also you can find them in Appalachian country country tunes and all that stuff. Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, cool. Any other questions? Okay, well, yeah, thanks to Scott and thanks to Lori for having us. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. That was very interesting and really fun um, to see some of these different possibilities. Let's take a little break, and there's a jam sign up back there. And if anybody wants to try doing one of these New Orleans rhythms, even with a tune maybe that you're working on, that could be fun tonight if we want to just kind of continue this forward a bit. But otherwise, there is the usual sign up, and we'll see what we can do going forward. Maybe have a little tuba on some tunes, or maybe not. Okay. Um, but yeah, so reminder that this is supported. I always forget to announce who all we're supported by, but Dane Arts, we have grants from Dane Arts, Madison Arts Commission, Wisconsin Arts Board, National Endowment of the Arts, and a new one from the Madison Community Foundation that helps support this our programming in the community and also in schools when we go in and do things in schools. So I just want to say those very important names that help to make this happen. Also, yeah, thanks, Fred. Fred has been a great supporter through the years, too. So thanks to Fred. Let's just take a little pause, and then we'll come back with some more music and get everybody on stage playing a few times.